Hi, this is Ron with the Radiologic Technologist.com blog and YouTube channel. I'm going to try to knock out one more video while I'm in front of the camera. And this one's particularly tough, this question, but it's not uncommon. This one is about being an older tech. The question or the comment came in on one of the YouTube videos where I had talked about the incoming baby boomer population and how they're going to overwhelm the hospital systems, and there's not enough techs to keep up with that volume, is what studies are showing, at least in our current state. And this person said, suggestion about a future video. Those of us that are nearing retirement and all the issues that go along with that, slowing down due to age or health, adapting to new management or technology, dealing with the younger techs coming in that are working much faster, the fear of losing the job or having to look for another one. Is there really any prospects for older techs that may have limitations? I am late 50s and work with 3 other techs my age. And these are things we talk about frequently, but being in our little bubble, it's harder to see a more global view of these issues. So lots to unpack there, but I think you may be in your bubble. You're not recognizing something you said there, and that's that you're in your late 50s and you're working with 3 other techs your age. So that means there's 4 of you in that department in your late 50s. That speaks volumes. And without knowing your employer, obviously, I would say kudos to your employer, because obviously they don't have a single concern about the age of the employees, which I think is appropriate. If you can do the job, you can do the job. I don't care if you're 85. So let's try to dissect this, because these are some serious concerns, and I can definitely see where there's value in this discussion. So I don't know. Let's see if we can't break it down. So slowing down due to age and health, adapting to new management or technology. So, the new management thing, the best philosophy, in my opinion, is still just to keep your head down and do your job, because you never know what that new boss is going to be like. I mean, in administration, I get new bosses, and I've had CEOs. I report to CEOs typically. And I've had CEOs that were just spot on. I would say, this room is in this tiny closet, and this break room is gigantic, and we have 3 techs. Let's swap these. Or there's a shut off emergency button in the MRI suite in zone 3, right next to the door opening big silver button. We need to put a cover over that emergency stop button. And, I had a CEO at that particular place that was like, I totally agree. You're spot on. Do it. And gave me the green light on projects. It was a phenomenal thing. But we all know that they're few and far between, that you're also going to have the people that just don't get it. We don't have the funds for that right now. We need to focus on other areas of the hospital, which is Latin for the OR, right? I've had nuclear medicine cameras that were beyond end of life, that no longer had parts even made, and a brand new O-arm shows up in the OR that I wasn't even aware of. Some surgeon said he had to have it, and admin bought it for him for $1 million. And it takes 2 techs to run it, and they didn't even consult me. So when you're talking about new management, that's an age-old topic. You keep your head down, you do your job. I'm not advocating being a yes man or a yes person. Stand up for what you believe in, say what you believe in. If you're asked to do something that is not proper patient care, hurry up and get that patient and get them out of here and get to the next one. Come on, speed up. No, I'm going to take my time and treat each patient as if it were my mother or my father. And I'm going to give them proper patient care, because that is my job. I don't rush. I don't run. I don't push patients through just to try and increase productivity. And management should appreciate that, but that doesn't mean they will. You certainly want to do the old private versus public discussion. If you disagree with something, it's better to do that in private. There's nothing worse to an admin than being at a big team meeting and one tech is going off about what they don't like about something. So do they have the right to say it? Yes, but is it productive to drag something out like that in a group meeting where everybody has time involved in being there? No, that discussion should be held privately. So moving past new management, you always have to deal with new management the same way. Give them time to get settled, feel them out, see what you can even have a private meeting with them if you want. In fact, when I start new at a place in admin, I post a schedule on my door with sign up times. And at the first staff meeting, I say, there's a sign on my door, come sign up. Let's have 15 minutes to get to know each other. Let's learn what each other's about. Let's start off on that type of a forward trajectory where we're just talking about why we're here and what we like about the place and maybe a little bit about family and whatnot. And so, if you get new management, don't be afraid to say, hey, can I stop by for 15 minutes? And, you can ask about their work philosophies or not. You can ask about their leadership style or not. You can just chat and see if they're open for conversation or shut down. And then technology, again, you're in radiology, so it's always going to be changing. You're always going to have new technology. Is it going to get harder to operate? Absolutely, but only because it's brand new to you. Remember back when you were developing film? Remember when you first learned how to develop film? What a hassle, right? But now you don't even have to do that anymore. Now it's all digital. Now it's all self-developing, as it were. And so you have to keep learning to keep up, or you're going to outmode yourself. You're going to become less valuable if you can't use the latest equipment. Now, that doesn't mean you lose all value, because I've already seen in my career in some aspects where people that know some of the old school stuff are in high demand right now, because let's take, for example, like my mom, who used to be in respiratory therapy 30, 40 years ago. The old school ventilators that they had back then, of course, got improved in new technology and things continue to change. But when COVID hit, some of these hospitals who are running out of the new fancy respiratory machines had some of this older technology. And people like my mom know how to operate that. They may be a little rusty, but they remember the theory behind it. And those people were shoulder tapped to step in and help out in this crisis and bring these old pieces of equipment back into existence and start using them, as long as they're code compliant and all that. So never look at what you've learned in the past as something that you might not ever use again. There's still chiropractors out there using film. It was quite a while ago when I shot on some, but there were still, when digital technology was out, there are still some offices that run film. Few and far between, definitely still running CR. So you still have to know how to do that stuff. So when new technology comes out, here's what you can do. So if you're one of those people that gets a little terrified by the new technology, and it certainly can be, some of it can be, really stressful. But for the most part, the concept of human user interface is a big thing now, which means, how do I make it easier for the user to use it? I saw it coming to McDonald's years ago. McDonald's used to say Coke, large Coke, medium Coke, whatever. And then all of a sudden it was a picture of a small Coke and a picture of a medium Coke and a picture of a large Coke. So the employee no longer even had to read the words. They just looked for the size of the soda or the size of the fries, and they pushed that button. Our imaging technology is doing that. You'll see X-ray machines now that have a picture of an ankle and a picture of an elbow. And then you have 3 sizes of patient. Do I pick a medium-sized patient and an ankle? And it throws your technique in there. Does that mean you can forget technique? Oh, no, because it either will break and you'll be forced to go to room 4 that has the old stuff, or you'll get moved to another facility to help out or something, and you've got to retain that stuff. But I was going to say, look up YouTube videos, because there's a lot of YouTube videos that the vendors do about their product. And now there are technologists even starting to share some of that information, which I'm so glad to see that happening, because for so long hospitals have said no cameras, no video, you can't do anything you're doing here, you can't share it with anybody, even if it's just you and your friends sitting in the break room. I got written up at one hospital because I gowned up with PPE and had a picture taken of me, and it was my birthday. I was working on my birthday. I was doing a CAT scan on a COVID patient on my birthday, and I posted a picture of me in full regalia, doing the thing, and got called into HR, and they're like, "You can't take pictures in the hospital." Whatever. No patient information whatsoever on there. So I'm glad that people are starting to share. And I'm not saying, get yourself in trouble. Always follow your company's policy, but hospitals are being forced to accept certain things that they didn't used to accept. There's no harm in a picture of me wearing PPE when there's no patient involvement whatsoever. So if you get a new piece of technology, look for YouTube videos on it. And you can also join some Facebook groups. There are probably 15 Facebook groups for radiology. And I know some people are anti-Facebook, and I understand why they're anti-Facebook. But the fact is, it's there, and it's a popular platform, and it's easily accessible, and it's everywhere. And so on Facebook, in fact, I have a group on Facebook called the Radiologic Technologist group. And you can go into these, you join them to ask you a few questions. We try to filter out the advertisers and spammers and stuff, but people go in there and they'll say, I'm having a hard time with my SI joints. Do you have any tips for me? And like 30 to 100 people will post how they deal with that problem. And so if you feel like in your 50s you're struggling with some things, go to a Facebook group for radiology and post your question. And if you don't want anybody to know it's you posting it, you can send that message to the administrator of that group or the moderator of that group and say, I don't want to post this because people on here might know where I work, but here's my question. Will you post it anonymously? And they will post that for you. And here comes, I don't think I've ever seen a post with less than 30 answers. Texts are, and this is what I love about this field. We love our jobs, right? We don't always love the administration, but we love our jobs, and we love to help each other, and we love to take care of the patient. So look for those YouTube videos, look for the Facebook groups, forums to ask your questions. I scroll through there daily just to learn. And then there's other organizations that you can be a part of as well. Reddit has a subreddit called r/radiology where lots of helpful stuff gets posted. So social media is really coming out there and providing a lot of information. You can also hit up the vendor themselves. You can call, your reps would love nothing more than to have an excuse to come visit your hospital and get some palm pressing time, right? Handshaking time. And not only does your salesperson want your department to be happy, but he's got an app specialist, and it's their sole job to teach you how to use that equipment. So anytime I buy a new piece of equipment for a department, there is mandatory training on that equipment, and it typically lasts for at least a couple days, if not a couple weeks, depending on how difficult it is. But you schedule an app specialist for a couple days. I've even, on new MRI scanners, I'll scale back the scheduling to every other hour. So you have an hour to do a patient, you set up for it, you have an hour to do the patient, and then you have post exam time to go over what you did with the app specialist, and then you have your next patient. And does it affect productivity? You bet it does. But can I explain it? Absolutely I can, to my boss, why productivity is down a little bit. Because we just bought a brand new 3T, and we've never had a 3T in this facility before. So don't be afraid to reach out to your vendor or your app specialist. Don't be afraid to reach out to others. If you work at hospital A and 30 minutes away is hospital B, and you know the tech over there or one of the techs over there, call them up or text them or email them and say, hey, do you guys have a Fuji whatever room or a CareStream room? What can you tell me about it? How do you do stitching on your spines, whatever your question is? So these are all things you can do to become more comfortable. And then last but not least, there's always playing around with the equipment when you don't have any patients. Now, if you're on a busy day shift schedule, you may not ever have that time. But can you come in on a Saturday when you're not working and play around with the room that might not be being used? Or what about coming in Sunday morning at 7 a.m. or something when there's low patient volumes? I always recommend that on C-arms and the fluoro stuff is to go put, an object on the table, and if you got a radiologist in the room or somebody that's willing to be there so you can step on the button, you can get some practice. Otherwise you step out or whatever, but always try to get more practice on something you're not comfortable with, because the last thing you want is to be right in the middle of a difficult exam and you don't know what you're doing, because then you're going to look bad. You're going to feel like an idiot for not knowing what you're doing. The patient's going to be looking at you like, what are you doing? God forbid somebody else is in the room looking at you like, what are you doing? So that's what you do with new technology. And then you move on to dealing with younger techs coming in that are working faster. Does that mean they're better? No. Does that mean they're getting a better quality image? No. Agility or running around quickly, it's not the whole piece of the puzzle. It's being smart enough to know what needs to be done and when. Can they sprint off and get a portable chest and come back faster? Maybe, but is that diagnostic quality better than yours? Probably not. Maybe even less, because you've got the experience of how to do it properly. So unless your facility is keeping track of which techs and are taking what exams and showing numbers, because some do that. I worked with somebody in my system who would post the numbers. And at first they put the techs names and how many they were doing. And it was kind of like a call out of, you guys at the bottom aren't doing near what these guys at the top. And that was a nightmare. And they quickly learned that was a bad idea. And so they started putting employee numbers instead of names. And I still not too sure, because, you and I both know, especially you seasoned techs, a cross table lateral hip on grandma is a lot more time consuming than a portable chest. So while Susie may shoot a 5 portable chest in 20 minutes, and I do 1 cross table lateral hip in 20 minutes, that's not apples to apples. Those are completely different. So, I get that you may feel like somebody's outperforming you, but at the end of the day, it's like that person that speeds past you in the neighborhood or on the street. And then 2 minutes later, you end up right next to each other at the stoplight. And you're kind of looking at them going, well, so was it worth doing 80 and a 60 so you could end up right next to me, you jackwagon? At the end of the day, you guys should still be performing at about the same levels you always have. And I wouldn't worry too much about that. What else? Fear of losing the job or having to look for another one. That's always going to be there. You're always going to have that fear. You need to face that fear and just kind of settle with yourself that as long as you do a good job, you should be able to keep your job. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works. You could be employee of the year and the next year get let go. So that ebbs and flows with administration. It ebbs and flows with financial status of the hospital. It ebbs and flows with morale in the department. All kinds of things. So I think one of the things I used to do is I always kind of kept one eye out on what jobs were out there. I always kept contact with, I call them headhunters, but the people with the staffing companies. I always kind of kept maybe a monthly email or something where I'd say, hey, how's it going? How's the market looking? Where's your hot spots? What trends are you seeing? And kind of keep your finger on the pulse, if you will, on the market, so that if you do find yourself unemployed, you have some ideas. And, it's hard for me to give you ideas on where to go without knowing your market and that kind of thing. But one thing I always kind of kept kind of in the back of my mind was I could always start my own portable company, right? And that might scare some people, but it's really not that difficult. You already know how to do the X-rays. All you need is a vehicle, which you probably already have to drive around, a portable X-ray machine, which is very low cost. Now they make them the size of suitcases that fit in the back of your car, in the trunk of your car. And you would go around and talk to some nursing homes and say, look, if I could come to your facility and do the portable chest X-rays, or the hips if your patient fell out of their beds or whatever. If I can come to you and do those and provide that service, and your patient wouldn't have to be taken by ambulance to the facility and back, and you wouldn't have to schedule all that and send an aide with them if that's necessary. If I could provide all that, would you say it'd be a value to you if I came here and did these things? And of course, yeah, that would save us so much trouble. So you have to set up a company, and you have to get a radiologist on board to read your studies. And if you're in your 50s and been working in the field for a while, you should know a couple rads that are friends. And it's not that hard. I've known some guys to have some really profitable mobile X-ray businesses, and for the most part, you can set your own schedule, but you have your morning exams for your morning portable chest, and then you can go out on emergency runs, stats, but that's an extra fee, right, that you can collect. And so you got the mobile business, like an ultrasound. It's really easy. There's people in the mall doing gender reveals for ultrasound. They're charging $150 just to do a gender reveal per patient. So think about it in that aspect. You can run it on your own. You can go work in a doctor's office and just do X-rays at the doctor's office. You can look for another hospital or another clinic. You can go into the teaching aspect of it. Maybe find a local school that's looking for an adjunct professor in an X-ray program, or even just a school, high school, middle school, college, that's looking for a biology teacher or an anatomy teacher, because you've got a degree in science and you've been living science for your entire career. So those are just some of the things you can think about if you're looking at looking for another job should something happen along the way. Is there really any prospects for older techs that have limitations? Only thing I could think of really is if you can get into a clinic where there's less demand. Like I had mentioned in a previous video, we had a clinic in a smaller town. It's a smaller clinic, and they wanted an X-ray there, but they didn't really even have enough volume to there may be days they don't do any X-rays. So we had to think financially what was feasible, and what we came up with was a hybrid of a CT or an X-ray tech that does phlebotomy, a phlebotomy X-ray tech combo. And so that's something, you can't teach a phlebotomist how to do X-ray, but you can teach an X-ray tech how to do phlebotomy. In fact, we're already trained, to be honest. You just have to learn what color tubes go with what tests. So that was something that you don't have the demand, you don't have the high volumes of exams to do. And we have those all over this place, smaller clinics. Somebody had the luck of an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and they got off at noon on Friday because that's when the docs left. We have another clinic that has 2 techs that are quite busy, but it's just 8 to 5. They don't do weekends. They don't do nights. They don't have call. There is women's imaging. If you can get into mammography, there's DEXA scans that are usually there. We have DEXA techs that just do DEXAs all day. How hard is that, right? So it depends on what your limitations are, and you need to also be aware of what they are. And if you're having difficulties, you really need to bring them to the attention of your supervisor, because you don't want to get yourself into a position where you start to have problems at work. If you start to find yourself getting lost in your own hospital, or if you're X-raying the wrong patient because you forgot to ask their name, which happens to all of us at some point. But if those kinds of misfires are being tracked. And so if you X-ray the wrong person 10 times in 1 week because you forgot to ask, that's a problem. So if you're aware of cognitive issues, or if you're starting to have too much back issues to be on your feet all day, or something like that, you need to share that with your employer. Or if you're not sure you can share it with your boss because maybe you're not quite sure about that boss, you can take it to your HR representative, and you can share it with your HR representative, because they are aware of work comp issues and special accommodation issues, and what the ADA is all about, and what employers are required to do for employees who have disabilities or that have encumbrances. And the days are gone where they just say, you're too slow, you're out of here. Or you're at the top of your game making more than any other tech, you're out of here, I'm going to replace you with 2 people, half your cost, or whatever. That doesn't mean it's not still happening, because it is. under the guise of other, downsizing or whatever the flavor of the day phrase is. Um, but have some faith in yourself that you've made it this far because you're good at what you do, and believe in yourself that you can continue to operate at the necessary capacity. And if you get to that point where you're starting to question it, then it's time to consider having the discussion with your boss or your HR rep. Because the last thing we want is somebody who, if you're having issues with the hand and you end up in an IR procedure and end up grabbing a syringe or grabbing a needle or getting a needle stick or something, you've endangered yourself, and we don't want that. You kind of have to know your limitations. And I've seen techs, man, that push it way too far that you think, why are you still working? And of course, it's always because I need the money or whatever. But there just comes a point when it's just, I've had to let people go who were scanning the wrong patient and then lying about it. They were throwing their exam in the digital trash can and saying, "What, no, it wasn't me," or the nurse brought me the wrong patient. It's their fault. No, you're the tech. You verify. Um, I've had techs who have needed a list of step-by-step instructions whenever we would roll out new workflow. For example, if you have a specific workflow for, let's say, providers who are outside of your network versus inside, they have your EMR in network, but they don't out of network, and some of them have to have paper documentation. Others come to you electronically. Sometimes that can throw people off when you're used to doing things a certain way, and all of a sudden there's a new process. So I've had situations where we've made checklists, and it would just say, if this is an out of network provider, here's the steps you follow to do the exam. Verify who they are, find their paper order, scan it into the system, verify the orders, do the exam, see them out, burn the disc, send it over to the doctor's office, whatever, and then the list for the other. That way, sometimes I even just do that for common things. My Saturday automobile maintenance checklist. I got to remember to check the oil on everything, the transmission fluid on everything, the radiator fluid, the brake fluid, the wiper fluid. You can't always remember everything every time, so it helps to have a checklist. It kind of goes back to the old model of the airplane pilots who have their checklist before they ever take off. So I hope this has been helpful. And if anything, I just want to instill with you that if you're in your mid 50s and you're in a group with 3 other techs your age, then it sounds pretty secure there. I may not feel it, and you may get new management that comes in, and maybe they're talking about, increasing productivity and things need to start picking up around here or whatever. Just remember, you're still there because you've done what it takes to be there. And there's probably even some techs that aren't there anymore that started with you. They couldn't hack it, or they moved on, or whatever. Give yourself some credit that you're still there and you're still kicking butt. And I hope this helps. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if you have any other questions. Have a great weekend.